At first glance, it seems impossible. A single American destroyer, a ship barely the length of 2 city blocks and weighing less than 2,700 tons, standing against a Japanese fleet whose combined tonnage exceeded 200,000. Battleships armed with 18-inch guns, cruisers bristling with armor thicker than the destroyer's entire hull. Yet, on the morning of October 25, 1944, in the churning gray waters of Samar in the Philippine Sea, that impossibility happened. USS Johnston, under Commander Ernest E. Evans, charged headlong into one of the largest naval forces ever assembled. By noon, an empire's naval pride was broken, and a tin can had written its name in steel. In 1944, the U.S. Navy ruled the Pacific by numbers. Over 6,800 ships in commission, 28 fleet carriers, 349 destroyers, and more coming off the slips every week from California to Maine. Yet power had stretched thin. As General MacArthur's forces stormed Leyte Gulf to reclaim the Philippines, Admiral William Halsey's fast carriers were drawn north chasing the Japanese decoy force near Cape Engano. That left the escort carriers, small jeep carriers of Task Unit 77.4.3, nicknamed Taffy 3, exposed. Their job was close air support, not fleet combat. 6 slow carriers, 3 destroyers, and 4 destroyer escorts stood between Japan's center force and thousands of American soldiers landing on Leyte's beaches. At dawn, radar operators aboard Johnston picked up distant returns, metallic shapes emerging from squalls. Moments later, lookouts saw the flashes. Shells arced over the horizon, massive, fiery arcs reaching from 20 miles away. It was Vice Admiral Takeo Kurida's armada, 23 ships, including Yamato, the largest battleship ever built, whose 18.1-inch guns fired 3,200-pound shells that could vaporize a destroyer in a single hit. The Japanese had slipped through the San Bernardino Strait during the night, undetected. Now, at 06:58 hours, Johnston and the others were their only obstacle. Commander Evans didn't hesitate. His destroyer's general quarters alarm rang out. Metallic clatter, men sprinting through narrow steel corridors, the smell of diesel and sweat filling the ship. The crew was trained for anti-submarine duty, not surface duels. Their 5.5-inch guns could fire 20 rounds a minute, each weighing just 55 pounds, barely mosquito bites against armor 16 inches thick. Yet Evans' decision was immediate and absolute. "We will attack. All engines ahead flank." Radio log, USS Johnston, 25 October 1944, 07:04 hours. The destroyer's twin General Electric turbines roared to 52,000 horsepower. The deck shuddered as the ship leapt forward, speed climbing past 33 knots, faster than anything in the Japanese line. Seawater sprayed across the bridge windows. The captain removed his shirt to free movement, taking the helm himself. Crewman Joseph Tull recalled later, "He was part of the ship. Every turn, every order, it was him against them." Petty Officer J. Tull, Oral History, Naval Institute Archives. As Johnston advanced, she laid a screen of smoke, dense black plumes spewing from generators to obscure the carriers retreating to the east. Inside that smoke, she turned her destroyer directly toward the Japanese heavy cruiser Kumano. At 10,000 yards, she unleashed all 10 torpedoes. Each Mark 15 carried 825 pounds of torpex, enough to gut a cruiser's hull in a single hit. One struck home at 07:24 hours. The blast tore off Kumano's bow, killing 200 men instantly and forcing the ship out of formation. A single destroyer had just maimed a warship 10 times its size.
But victory came at a cost. Armor-piercing shells found Johnston. At 0730, a 14-inch round from Congo smashed through the forward engine room, killing crew instantly, rupturing fuel lines and knocking out half power. Steam hissed through ruptured valves. The deck became slick with oil. Still, the guns kept firing. 5-inch shells at 15 rounds per minute, shifting targets from Yamato to Chokai to Haruna. Fire control radar Mark 37 tracked through smoke and rain, gunners correcting by instinct when systems failed. "Cease not until you can spit in their eye," Evans barked through the intercom. After-action report, Commander Elliot E. Evans, 1944. Other ships joined. Hull, Heermann, and Samuel B. Roberts, tiny destroyer escorts, followed Johnston's suicidal lead. It became a knife fight among giants. The Americans fired 652 5-inch shells and 27 torpedoes in that chaotic hour. The Japanese fleet, confused by smoke and aggressive American maneuvers, believed they were facing heavy cruisers. Kurita hesitated. He ordered evasive action, breaking his formation just as airstrikes from the escort carriers began hitting from above. By 0815, Johnston was bleeding from a dozen holes. Power dropped to 17 knots. Ammunition handlers, many without shirts, passed shells by hand through flooded compartments. The deck guns glowed orange from heat. Every few minutes, a Japanese shell struck close enough to spray shrapnel across the bridge. Water boiled around her hull as near misses detonated. Yet her crew, average age 22, kept the rhythm. In less than an hour, Johnston's gunners had fired 600 rounds. Their last torpedo missed Yamato by mere yards. The Japanese flagship turned away rather than risk another hit, an astonishing act of caution from a ship displacing 72,800 tons. By 9 o'clock, Johnston was a wreck. Her forward guns destroyed, communications out, steering jammed. Evans shifted command to the fantail, shouting orders down a voice tube. He still refused to break off. When Samuel B. Roberts began sinking, Johnston turned to cover survivors, firing her last shells at a cruiser closing in. At 9:45, 3 shells hit her bridge in succession. Evans was thrown into the sea. Witnesses saw him wave once before disappearing into smoke. He was never found. Of Johnston's 327 men, 141 survived the day, clinging to life rafts amid oil, rain, and wreckage for nearly 50 hours before rescue. And yet, they had won. Kurita, convinced he faced Halsey's main fleet, ordered full retreat at 9:20. The Japanese lost 3 cruisers and withdrew their remaining ships north, abandoning the chance to destroy the invasion force at Leyte. The largest battleship ever built had been driven off by a destroyer weighing 1/30th its size. Post-war analysis stunned naval strategists. Johnston had fired 30% of her torpedoes and over 90% of her gunnery ammunition before going down. Her gunnery accuracy exceeded 38%, unprecedented for surface combat under fire. Engineers later calculated that her propulsion plant, rated for 60,000 shaft horsepower, had been pushed to 66,000 during the charge. The machinery literally overclocked beyond design limits. The Bureau of Ships noted that her hull endured 19 major caliber hits before structural failure. This ship was fought beyond endurance, the report concluded, yet her spirit did not break. U.S. Navy Damage Report, 1945. The technical miracle was only half the story. The human factor, training, willpower, instinct mattered more. Most of Johnston's gunners had less than 18 months of experience. Many had never seen live fire before Leyte. Yet U.S. destroyer doctrine emphasized initiative, independent aggression even under superior threat. That doctrine, born from years of mass training, over 5 million man-hours logged in gunnery and damage control across 1942 to 44, was what allowed Evans' men to act without waiting for orders. It was not madness, it was procedure taken to its logical extreme.
When the wreck of Johnston was finally discovered in 2019, lying 21,180 feet below the surface, her guns still pointed forward. Even at that depth, the barrels faced the direction of the enemy. It was as if the ship herself refused surrender. The inscription on her battle plaque remains the simplest testament. In action against overwhelming odds, the USS Johnston demonstrated that courage is a weapon more potent than steel. From a technical view, Johnston's sacrifice delayed Kurita's force long enough for carrier aircraft to rearm and strike again. Strategically, it preserved the Leyte invasion and sealed Japan's naval fate. The Imperial Navy never again mounted a major surface offensive. One destroyer's charge had crippled the last heartbeat of a dying empire. Courage in war is often measured in victories, but here it was measured in resistance, a refusal to yield when logic demanded retreat. The Pacific War was a contest of production, logistics, and technology. Yet on that gray morning, none of those decided the outcome. A handful of men on a ship made of steel thinner than a coin did. The world expected destruction. Instead, they found defiance. And so the legacy of Johnston endures, proof that in the machine age of warfare, the most decisive weapon remained human resolve forged in steel.